Keith is an amazing person. It was an amazing interview. And what can I say? He's a fantastic guy, and I can't wait to see what he does in the future.
Alanna Leslie, actor, singer, presenter, voiceover talent, and I have just been interviewed on the KeithAndrewNetwork, and it was amazing. Keith, keep up the great work. It was such a beautiful conversation, and I look forward to seeing all the shows that you do in the future. Bye.
So the first question I want to ask you, box number 1, is tell our audience a little bit about your background and how you came to do what you do.
Okay, hi, my name is Alanna Leslie, and I am a Jamaican actress, born and raised in Kingston, Jamaica. And I actually grew up singing and acting all my life in school and also in theater productions here. Also did voiceovers from my teenage years, worked in voiceover, and also trained in media. So then went and did some radio and television stuff after graduating from media school. But I actually moved to London in 2007 to attend drama school there, and lived there, or had been living there, for 13 years, up until obviously the pandemic occurred last year. And I thought it would be best to come back home to Jamaica for a few months. I've been here now for 6 months. But that is pretty much how I got into acting and my sort of journey since then.
No, absolutely. As long as you have the heart and passion for it, that's all that really matters. Never do anything where you're setting yourself up for failure. Now, there were times where I was doing my talk show, and there were people over there saying, is he capable of doing it? Does he know what he's getting himself into? It's a lot of work. And even my own family says, is he ready? Is he capable of doing it? But like I said, this June will be officially 8 years. And I've been doing, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I'm very passionate about it. So as long as you put your heart and soul into it, and you give nothing but 110%, then you're good as gold. I know I've been in situations where I done things half-assed, where I said, hey, I really don't want to be here right now. I don't want to be doing this right now. And then you don't know who walks through the door. At the time, they may be a nobody to you, but later on, you may come across the same person, like, oh, I know you. You had the I don't care attitude, so why should we hire you for this if what I saw and expected of you back then was a personality of who didn't care? So it's really important to give the presence of giving nothing but the best, because that can always bite you in the ass later on.
I agree. And I think that's something that we have to be mindful of in our industry. Working in media, in the performing arts, it's something that you have to be mindful of. In any industry, really, you do have to be mindful of others, be mindful of how you are coming across, and try to operate with integrity. None of us are perfect. We're human. We make mistakes. Sometimes we don't think things through. Sometimes, even though we strive to be professional, we strive to always show up and do our best. Sometimes we do have those moments where sadly our weaknesses might overtake us. But I think what's also important, in addition to what you've said, is to always make amends, to always try, to always be doing your best to be your best. And even if you've done your best, you're thinking, well, how can I improve this for next time? How could I have done that a little bit better? How could I maybe have said that differently if I don't like how that went or how that interaction took place? I think it's something that we all have to be mindful of, just trying our best and doing our best to be our best. I think I agree with you there.
No, absolutely. Now, Jay, we're going to pass the show over to you. Same exact question. Tell our audience a little bit about your background and how you came to do what you do now.
Well, I actually started out as a zookeeper from the age of 12 until about 25. And my grandfather got sick, and I had to move back to my home state of Ohio, where I then moved to a different city in Ohio and got involved in the medical field. For legal reasons, I'm not going to say where in Ohio or what exactly I got into, but it was a pretty big field. And I got injured while I was at work. And it turned out I had a pre-existing heart condition that was congenital. And the injury combined with my congenital heart defect caused a stroke. And that was in 2009. So in 2009, I had a stroke. 2010, they found a brain tumor, a common kind of pituitary adenoma, and it made me grow breasts and hair in places I never had hair before. But then I had another stroke in 2010, and then another stroke in 2011. And then they wanted to do a laparoscopic procedure to try to fix my heart, which was botched, and they had to crack my chest, and I had to have open heart surgery. And I had my fourth stroke in 2012. And then in 2013, I went in for a routine procedure. One of the side effects of stroke number 2 was severe medication non-controlled epilepsy. So I went in for a 5-day stay, and all these doctors came in the room 4 hours after they took my blood and told me that I was a week away from death because I had full-blown AIDS, which was contact traced back to the facility that I worked at. I contracted it while I was doing my job. When you're a frontline worker, this is a risk that you put yourself in.
No, I understand, but the question I was asking you is, you also mentioned that you were an actor and a comedian. So
Yeah, it obviously was not God's plan for me to be a zookeeper, which was my first passion, and I still love animals. And then I thought it was God's plan for me to be doing what I was doing in the healthcare field. And then I felt lost, and I really turned back to my faith, my Catholic faith. And my Monsignor would come and visit me in the hospital, and I would ask if I was being punished for being such a nasty, bad person. He said no. So I forgave everyone in my life that had been bad to me. Then I had to forgive all of them for all the bad things that I had said and done to them. And it's just a weight lifted. And he said, God has a plan for you. You should not be alive right now. So he has a plan, and he will reveal that plan to you. And it took a few years, but in 2020, an opportunity arose for me to be in an indie horror film. And this film is actually Kathy Podwell's re-entry to acting. She took 30 some years off. She took a hiatus to raise her kids. And her first big role was in an indie horror movie. If anybody doesn't know who Kathy Podwell is, She was JR's second wife in the original Dallas. Is where a lot of people will remember her from. But she was in a cult classic 80s film called Night of the Demons. She played Judy. She was dressed up as Alice in Wonderland. So Hayden Newman is the writer, director, and star of the film. Emailed her, sent her the script. She loved the script. She thought it was groundbreaking. And she said yes. So this is like her big re-entry from her hiatus to acting. And I'm just proud to have a small role in a film with someone that I grew up watching with.
No,
Someone with my grandparents. I used to watch Dukes of Hazzard with my papa, and then Dallas would come on and he would go fishing, as he called it. And I would watch Dallas with my mama, neither of which are with me anymore. I feel them. They're still with me. They're watching over me. But it's just amazing to be in a film with her. And Hayden was an amazing director. His co-director and cinematographer, Sam Hodge, amazing. I made amazing friends for life. But when I stepped on set, I just felt it. I was like, this is God's plan. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. I felt completely at home. Everything I've gone through doesn't define me. I mean, I was in the hospital for the majority of my 30s. I think I got 2 years, 5 months, and 18 days of my 30s of not being in a hospital. So I had a captive audience to entertain, and I used comedy and sarcasm the whole time to entertain them. And it entertained myself too. So, yeah, the acting bug bit me. I did that. And then right after that wrapped, I got a job. It was a comic improv show called Real People Funny. And it is now defunct. It went off. And one of the ladies that I was on there with, the producer, Richard Allen Chen, who we lovingly refer to as Rack, he decided to give Angel a spinoff. And I came up with the name for it, which she loved. So we call it theComedyRx.com, your weekly dose of funny. We do it every Tuesday night. It's 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 Pacific, because the majority of our cast is in California. And I guess you could call it a mock show. It's not a real talk show. It's kind of a mock show.
Absolutely. And now we're going to take a quick commercial break because we're getting close to the time to do a wrap up. But when we come back, I'm going to pass it over to our other guests and we can just jump right into it when we come back. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the KeithAndrewNetWork. It is episode 798. That's right, 798. Phone. It's brought to you by H.B. Gibson, host of the X Zone. Get into the zone. He interviews. He does a lot of great comedy skits. You know, it's a lot of work and a lot of great content. So make sure to check out H.B. Gibson, host of the X Zone. Also, call-ins brought to you by Wife of a Fighter. If you're into fitness and eating healthy, make sure to get into Life of a Fighter. Also, the following is brought to you by the KeithAndrewNetWork, available on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all social medias. Make sure to do hashtag KeithAndrewNetwork. Don't worry, all this will be linked on the screen. Our Instagrams will be on the bottom of the screen, so you get to follow us. And for people who want to know, the whole point of my talk show is to show people that even with having a learning disability, I can still amount to something. And at the same time, I'm able to turn myself into an example for people out there dealing with any types of learning disabilities and disabilities that never give up and prove people wrong. Prove to them that labels do not dictate who you are and who you want to be. So prove to them it can still amount to something. Now, I just did my little plug for myself and my two friends. Hopefully I get more sponsors. Passing it over to you, the last question I want to ask you is, one, have you ever been stereotyped? And I didn't even know you were live from Jamaica. I actually thought you were from England.
Yes, well, I have been based in London for 13 years. So on my Instagram page, it still says London, England, because I haven't changed it, you know. So it's that sense of sort of being in an in-between place. And I think that's how probably in some way, shape or form, everyone in the world is feeling a little bit in between right now. You know, we're all waiting this pandemic out, wondering, you know, what's it going to be like in another 6 months, another year, another 2 years. I think we're all watching and waiting. So yeah, I mean, in terms of if I've ever been stereotyped or put in a box, most definitely. As you've mentioned, I am Jamaican and I'm moving to London in the UK. You know, there are people that have a lot of stereotypical notions of what a Jamaican should look like or what a Jamaican should sound like, you know. So they might have seen a film and maybe think like all of us have locks or all of us are rastas, that we all maybe smoke weed. I don't know. People have their different notions, of who Jamaicans are and what we should look like and sound like. So I think that's one thing I heard quite a lot. Oh, you don't look Jamaican, you don't sound Jamaican. And it can be a little bit, you know, pressurizing if you feel like you're in some senses you have to be, you know, carrying the flag or trying to represent for such a large community of people, you know, millions of Jamaicans around the world. And it's not possible for all of us to look and sound the same and act the same. If you think about the United States, gosh, in the 50 states, what diversity do we have? You know, from Hawaii to, I don't know, Alaska to New York, it's just night and day, to Kentucky. Like the accents and the culture, you know, from city to city, from town to town, it's different. And it's the same in Jamaica. So I just do my best. I've had to learn over time and it still is hard sometimes, but not to take things personal. And when someone says something, to just try not to respond in a way that's you know, overly sensitive. And it can be tough because I am a sensitive person, but I think that's one lesson I've learned is to not take things personal and to understand that, you know, people, they don't mean any harm. Sometimes they really don't. And they just may not know better. And so the best thing that you can do is to try and respond in a loving way. And I know it can be tough sometimes, you know, when you face different prejudices and different things, people might be unkind or say things which are quite mean or derogatory. But I think the best thing that we can do is to not respond in that way back to them. And I think that's how we keep our own power and how we make the world better. Yeah.
You look and sound absolutely beautiful.
Thank you, Jay. And it's so great to hear from you as well. Your story has inspired me today.
You're beautiful on the inside and it just radiates to the outside.
Thank you. Thank you
You're
so
welcome.
much. Thank you. And you know, I used to watch Dallas too. When I was a little girl, it used to be broadcast in Jamaica as well. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Thanks for sharing about that. And, you know, I love what you said that, you know, I'm a person of faith as well. And I do believe that everything, you know, God works, you know, through our situations to make us stronger and to allow us to reach more people and to impact lives. And I'm just so blessed to be able to hear your story today, Jay, and your testimony and what, you know, what you've gone through and how you came about acting. Like, who knew that, you know, going through such a period of time and a decade of being in hospital, that somehow, you know, God would use that situation to spark something new in you. And I just think that's such an inspirational story, that even when we're going through such horrific things, that we can still find a little bit of light. And I think that's what the world needs right now, is all of us are trying to find the light in this situation, and to try and keep ourselves motivated and keep ourselves hopeful for a future that we're not certain of. And I think that's something that, you know, it's a recurring thing that keeps coming up to everybody that I talk to, you know, this anxiety that we feel and the uncertainty. But I think it's a time for us to really start, you know, really learning to trust God more, and to lean in on our faith, and also just to love each other more. It can be difficult because everybody's a bit on edge. But you know, but I think these are the times when it's the times that you really learn to love, when it's not easy to love. If it were always easy to love, then that's not a true test. But when we're in difficult situations, that's when we really learn to love ourselves, when maybe we're not feeling our best, or, you know, people aren't feeling, you know, sure or certain of things. But somehow I think that this is working together for our good. And I do believe that we will come out stronger. Those of us that do make it out, you know, because not everybody made it to 2021. And I'm just so grateful to be able to be sitting here and having this lovely conversation with you both. That's a blessing.
No, absolutely. You know, as you were saying, I'm going back to what you were saying. There's so much hate and poison. You know, there's just people are blaming Asian people for, you know, the virus. And people are so stupid and ignorant. It's absolutely, and people say, you know, white privilege and all that bullshit. And it's kind of like, I'm white and I don't have a lot of privilege. I'll give you an example. I am on the spectrum of, I fall under the spectrum of being retarded. So I wasn't able to go to college, get a BA and a bachelor's. I had to work my ass off to get what I wanted. But people just didn't randomly just hand it to me and say, here you go. But what about that? But, you know, everyone matters. You know, Black Lives Matter, obviously. You know, stop the hate was the attacking, you know, Asian people for absolutely no reason. That's just stupidity, number one, and ignorance. But unfortunately, you find more stupid people than nice people, hands off the bat. But it's kind of like, as you were saying about the virus, you know, I'm getting my second shot in 2 weeks, and hopefully you guys get your shots too. I'm going to ask you about England in a minute. Then we're actually going to wrap up the show. You know, wear a mask, be considerate to people, you know, stand 6 feet apart. Don't act like a freaking animal. And, you know, it's just, if everyone, I want this to be over. I want to, you know, I go get my wife back, go to malls, get a normal haircut instead of looking like freaking Lex Luthor every time I bush her my head, or the guy from Breaking Bad. You know, I like to get a normal haircut, but if you look at it, we're over the hurdle right now. You know, England, I don't know, last time I checked, I think England was on lockdown. And
yes, they still are. And now they're not allowed to leave no one's allowed to leave the country unless they can prove that they have a valid reason to leave. So they've now taken it up a notch, and I think that goes into play on the 29th of March. So yeah, they're still on lockdown. I think that should be the case up until lockdown until June, based on what the government has said. Yeah.
No, I agree. Now we're going to wrap up the show. The first thing I want to ask you guys is, how can your fans and listeners follow you on social media? Are you on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram? Jay, we're going to start off with you.
I'm horrible about this. All I have is my personal account on Facebook, and it doesn't even have my professional name on it. But you can follow me at Jace Chambers.
And
think
for
it-
me,
I
oh,
think it's
sorry.
actually, I think it's at, it might be at OSU Jace. I don't even think it's at Jace Chambers. See, this is the problem. This is the problem
Oh.
with people that have had strokes. I have brain damage. So that's the box that I get put in. People hear brain damage and they think I'm stupid. But clearly, I've sat here and had a conversation with y'all. So you can tell I'm not stupid.
Certainly not.
I just have a really bad memory.
Mhm.
Just look for Jace Chambers and you'll find me on Facebook and I'll friend you. It's fine.
No, absolutely. What about you?
Great. So you can find me on Instagram. I think that's the best place. So it's at I am Alanna Leslie. So it's, you see my name there. So it's ALANNA and then LESLIE. So at I am Alanna Leslie. So you should find it pretty easily on Instagram.
No, absolutely. And for our listeners, make sure to like and subscribe to the KeithAndrewNetWork on YouTube. We have brand new content from professional wrestling to, different challenges, voiceover challenges, everything. There's a little of everything on the KeithAndrewNetWork. Now, I have a couple questions for you guys off the air. While wrapping up, it was an honor to have both of you on, and looking forward to part 2. And to our fans, catch you later.